Hey everybody, Genesis7 here. Hope you are all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my thoughts and opinions for Forspoken for the PlayStation 5. But before I go any further into the video itself, I just want to take the moment to shout out Square Enix for supporting the channel as always. I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity they provided me with the review code for the PlayStation 5, so I've been able to have the time to get my thoughts, my impressions, and the footage you're going to see in this video together to bring out before release, and for that I am grateful. That being said, it doesn't affect anything that I'm going to say. They're my thoughts and opinions at the end of the day, and my thoughts and opinions alone. Now, I've got you covered with timestamps as always in the description box below, so if there is something you want to look for in particular, more than happy for you to skip ahead to that. If you want to watch me at 2x speed, more than happy for you to do that. Whatever floats your boat, all I ask is support the channel by either hitting the thumbs up button, subscribing to the channel, leaving a comment down below. Any of those will help out, or if you even stick for the whole video, I'm even more grateful for your time that you're giving me today. Now, let's talk Forspoken, and I think I need to address the elephant in the room. And there is no elephant in this room, but the elephant in the room is all this kind of social media and news and YouTube videos leading up to release with Forspoken saying there's red flags everywhere. Again, I'm going to state that I've been playing the PlayStation 5 version. I know nothing about the PC version. I'm more than happy for you to comment about it in the comment section below, but I've been playing it. My thumbnail says I've been having a blast. That is true. I'm going to address that right now. I've also probably got the question of like really good question mark in the thumbnail as well. Yes, it is a really good game and I have had a blast. That's pretty much the video in a nutshell. So if that's all you've come for, I've answered your question. I'll catch you on the flip side. But if you want to see how I got to that conclusion, please stick around. Now, I think it's important whenever talking about a game to kind of give you a bit of context, a bit of background. So I've been like up and down with the lead up to Forspoken. I've been excited and I've been like, huh? Then I've been excited, then I've been like, huh? Then I've been excited, then I've been like, huh? So it's been a bit all over the place. I had fun with the demo, but the demo didn't really kind of like sell me completely. I was like, yeah, I'll check it out for sure. The combat was definitely the shiner. We'll go into that in more detail, but it's been this kind of journey for Forspoken. I can tell you now that opinion has changed. I am in the double thumbs up camp for Forspoken, and I think for context as well, I've completed the game, I've rolled credits, I'm now pursuing to kind of like tick all the boxes now, clearing up endgame stuff and stuff that I may have missed. I've put in around 55 hours, I think, that I've clocked in now. So I think I've got an overall good kind of like standing with my thoughts and impressions I'm going to present to you. So I think I'm going to hit it off hard first, straight in with gameplay, because there's lots to cover. And I think the most important one is its kind of combat. Its combat is very unique, and I admit in the demo I had a bit of a hard time getting on with it. I could see what they were aiming for, but I just wasn't clicking with it. And I think it was one of those things that you needed more time with. And the fact that they threw it all at you in the demo, as opposed to kind of build you up slowly, definitely had an effect on how I perceived the demo. I'm happy to say that playing from like the intro of the game throughout to the end game of the game, my love for the combat has just gone up and up and up and up. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, Frey has these powers, and you unlock more powers as you go along through the game. You have these kind of like earth elemental attacks. You then get fire attacks that are more melee based. You then get water attacks that are more ranged and a bit more kind of like support magic, I guess you could say. And then you also get the green magic, which is more of like electric and debuffing and everything else in between. So you've got like a huge array of magic to kind of play around with, and the fact that the game kind of introduces it to you in bits and pieces as opposed to it all being thrown at you helps out. There are a plethora of spells and support spells to unlock, and not only that, you can then improve those spells further by kind of challenging yourself, because you might look at these spells and think, I'm not going to use them all, but there is like a mechanic in the game where you kind of like read books and you can kind of do little challenges. So for example, with Frey's magic, the bind, is to bind, I think you need to bind some characters to the ground and then defeat them while they're binded, and then you improve that spell. Each spell has a challenge behind it, so it kind of like gets you the opportunity to mess around, and that's how I was doing it. At first, with just the small selection of spells I had, it was a bit like, but as more came into play, more support magic, and then weaving everything in and out, it's such a pleasure to play around with. I think the combat is either going to win you over or it's going to get you to stay away, all pending on how you tackle it. And the way I tackled it, like I said, is I just kind of accepted it, brought it all on, unlocked it as I went along, and then just experimented. Embraced the challenges that it had with the books for each individual spell, so I could then learn more and how effective that spell is, and then weave it into my rotation. There's so many ways you can take on battle, from binding them with the earth elemental spells, and then going over to your melee fire spells and absolutely causing a firestorm while they're binded, and just cause absolute chaos. It's amazing. It really is, and I think you need to give it the time. If you give it the time, you'll be rewarded for that combat. Another issue I had with the combat was its buttons being L2 and R2. Over time, I came to love that, and I went over to another game that I'm playing, Monster Hunter Rise, and because I'm so used to the L2 and the R2, going back over to like the other just normal buttons has been hard. So I've just kind of gone back over to Forspoken, and I'm like, I'm playing this until I've done everything I need to do. I can't bounce back to another game. Having the adaptive triggers just kind of gives that bit of pleasure as well while you're doing combat. So yeah, I wanted to spend a good chunk talking about combat because I think it's really important. It is the staple of the game that makes it unique. Also, the effects, like visually, that these spells give off are amazing. It makes it so like pleasurable using these spells just with these visual effects. And when you level up your like super moves as well, I think it's when you press L2 and R2 together, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but when you use those, you level them up to like level 3, and when you have your level 3 version of that spell, it's a visual masterpiece. So yeah, combat is absolutely fantastic. I just think you need to give it the time, give it a chance, and learn with it. If you do that, I think you're gonna have a ball of a time, and you're probably gonna tell me like, yes, the combat is the shining force of this game. So moving on from combat, let's talk about exploration. We have a big open world. Some people can get overwhelmed by these worlds. Some people can absolutely smash through these worlds. I'm happy to tell you there is a lot of stuff to do in this world. It might feel empty. It kind of reminds me of like Breath of the Wild, the fact that it's this civilization once past. So you're going to be going to a lot of ruins and a lot of places with lore behind it. And not many NPCs. You just have your one hub world, your hub city, Cipal, which you're introduced to at the beginning of the game. Now that can be hit and miss with some people if there isn't that many NPCs out in the world, but I think with the way you can traverse this land and with the amount of collectibles and stuff you can do in the world, you can do anything from challenges, which are rewarding in its rewards. You can go to monuments to improve statistics. You can go through labyrinths, which are little mini dungeons with a boss at the end. You can unlock cloaks or necklaces or maybe some rare materials for crafting. This world has a lot to do, and yes, at times it may feel empty, but I think there's enough variety of things that it can do for you to really enjoy this world. The regions are very different, and there are some places, even me in the late game, the end game, I'm doing the end game, and there are places where I haven't unlocked a certain spell. There's one spell I'm after that I need, because you're going to need that spell to be able to jump off this cliff to then go all the way over to this like floating pillar in the distance. And once you kind of weave in your traverse spells, which again falls into the combat category because you can use it in combat, you need to use them traverse spells to get around this world, and it's really, really cool and unique. Sometimes it might get repetitive, and sometimes it did, But I think just the kind of variety of the things that you can find in the world, it kind of added up and made up for kind of the lack of NPCs. Now, I want to touch on this hub city, Cipal. This is somewhere you're going to be coming back throughout the story as time goes on. And there is a massive kind of set of side characters that I want to talk about when I talk about story and characters. But this is where you're going to find everyone. This is where you'll have your own little house with additions that you can collect as well. Cats. As a recent cat owner, this has kind of like catapulted up my list of like, there's cats in the game, and you can collect cats and they roam around your room as you collect them, and you can get a lot of them. It shot up my list now being a cat owner. So cat owners rejoice with that one. But yeah, this hub is really kind of like the place you keep going back to throughout the story. You can come back to it with using the fast travel if needs be. And it is a nice little place. I wish there was a little bit more to it, but it is what it is. So I think that's everything I want to touch on when it comes to gameplay exploration. So I guess under the gameplay umbrella, I just want to bring up crafting and kind of like what I talked about before with the spells upgrading. So you can craft, you can, each piece of armor you collect, the cloaks, I guess we could say, and the necklaces. They come with certain stats, certain kind of buffs that you can collect, and you unlock those buffs as you unlock the armor with that buff, if that makes sense. So if you have a piece like a cloak that you like better than the new cloak you want, if you've got the right materials, the stat or the buff that comes with that cloak, you can then put on the cloak you like, if that makes sense. So you can make each individual cloak your own, and you can improve the health, the defense, and all the spell powers as well. And it's very deep in its crafting, what you can do with it. There is a lot of resources to collect, and that falls under exploration again. You're going to be going back and forth trying to find lots of resources as you go up. A nice little tip, there is a spell under Frey's Earth category. It's Frey's magic, and that collects any items lying around you in a certain vicinity. Use that, it helps out a lot. And again, touching on the spells, you have these cottages laying around the world where it acts as your house, as it does in Cipal, and you can go to the bookshelf and go to the spells, do it, and do the challenges as well. I think the last thing I want to touch on when it comes to gameplay is the accessibility options. Now, it might not be on par with your Assassin's Creed Valhalla's, your Last of Us's, or your God of War's, but it definitely has a plethora of options to kind of cater to your gameplay style. So for example, you can automatically pick up items as opposed to press triangle. I turn that option on straight away because automatic like resource picking up should be automatic, but there are other ones as well that may help you out considerably if you have difficulties in certain areas, as well as Cuff and Frey have banter. Sometimes it's a bit you can turn that down to a bare minimal. I turned it down to low. It wasn't low enough. There is like a story option as well where they'll only talk about the story, so it won't have comments of when you've done a battle or when you've collected something or you've jumped over something. You won't have the same dialogue options all over again. It will only be things that are important, things you've not heard before. So that is a great option to have as well. So overall, the gameplay experience in Forspoken is where it shines. Going back over everything that we talked about, gameplay is where it's at, and this is where I had a blast with everything that it had to offer. They did a great job, solid gameplay, and I can't say much else negative about it except some little nitpicky things with like the Cuff and Frey banter and not being able to pick up resources automatically. You can fix them all up in the options. As for, again, there's not that many NPCs. I would like more, but it is what it is. It didn't really tarnish my experience whatsoever. Now I want to move on to something that people may be quite interested in. That's performance. Now I played through all of Forspoken in its performance mode. I got that nice frame rate. I don't know if it's locked at 60 all the time. It felt pretty smooth to me, and I had no significant drops whatsoever. And visually, it still looked incredible. Playing it on the 4K TV, I switched over to kind of like fidelity mode with the ray tracing and everything, and kind of busted out some spells and lots of spells. And visually, it looked incredible. Running at 30 frames, maybe a few dips here and there, but I'm no expert in noticing these. But it wasn't something that was like really kind of impacting my gameplay whatsoever. It was just the game handling all of these effects, as well as the ray tracing and everything else in between. And visually, it was incredible. But again, I stuck to the performance mode because of all the combat options and all the switching and swapping in between. There were no drops, no glitches, and no bugs that I experienced whatsoever. This was a smooth sailing experience for me on the PlayStation 5. They are my experiences. May differ, but I can tell you now, with everything that's been said, on the PlayStation 5, Forspoken is incredible. So I think I'm going to touch on story and characters last. So I'm going to take this moment to talk about music and sounds. The soundtrack of Forspoken is incredible. I had the digital deluxe version presented to me. So it came with the art book and the mini soundtrack. Give that a listen. The theme song by Bear McCreary, it is a bop. It is an orchestral kind of like bop. And I really, really like it. That kind of theme motif that you will hear throughout the game. I think there's another composer. I think his name is Gary something or other. I should have really had the name on hand. But there is another composer that does a majority of the scores throughout the game. I think it's just Bear McCreary that does the theme and maybe the ending theme. And maybe a few other themes in between. But that motif that you hear then, that main theme, is present throughout the game. And it's really nice to hear. You probably have been hearing some of the music in the background to this video as I've been talking to kind of accompany my voice. So it gives you a bit of an insight that this soundtrack really is incredible. It's definitely one of the bigger bangers when it comes to game OSTs. I think it will be one that will be highly sought after when it is released fully. Sounds... so satisfying, the sounds. Again, because you've got such a plethora of spells, and we're always going to be going back to spells. That's what this game is about. That's the hook. The sounds and just all the sizzling of the fire and the splashing of the water and the zaps of the electric and just the kind of crunching of the earth spells. Magnificent, man. I know that it might seem that I'm praising this game a lot, but I've put 55 hours into this game and everything has just been hitting me. I've been wearing the pulsers, and it really has been... it's been incredible. It really has. So let's finish off with story and characters. Now, story, I'm not going to go into too much because I don't want to spoil it for you. Simple as that. But I can say that it's okay. Definitely the gameplay is much better than the story. I can tell you that now. But the story is tolerable. And it definitely has some twists and turns in there throughout. And some moments. And some quite predictable moments as well. I think just kind of your typical kind of like RPG, JRPG story. It has those traits. But characters, let's talk about Frey, because I think when we had certain trailers, people were like, I think the word they used was cringe. And I admit, I definitely had those moments. Frey is like a... she's one of us. So imagine us being transported to a world randomly, and it's just so fantasy, and we don't know what the hell's going on. Their language is completely different to ours. We would act like Frey acts. She also has a bit of Jack Garland in her, which is definitely showcased throughout. There's definitely some lines throughout the story that reflect that, and I dig that. It's kind of like that witty kind of humor where you're like, I can't believe they said that, but that was pretty funny. And I guess, yeah, I don't find Frey annoying as a main character. The banter between Cuff, which is your companion, the cuff on your arm, and Frey, it's tolerable at best. It really is. And I think that's all I'm gonna say about that. I think it's something you got to judge for yourself. Again, there is a setting in game if you are sick of the banter between them. Again and again, you can switch that down to a minimum. But yeah, there's one thing that I was disappointed in when it came to characters, and that's its side characters. When you first kind of get to the world of Athia, however you want to pronounce it, I think it's Athia, so I'm going to stick with that so I don't get slaughtered in the comments. But you are introduced to a lot of characters, and you have an archive, which I haven't brought up, but it's good. For all the completionists, you have an archive that you can 100% full of characters, enemies, places, all the equipment and everything you've got. Now, you're introduced to a lot of characters, and they have their own entry, but the way it handles its side characters don't make them feel like side characters. They just feel like side characters when you meet them, and then they just become NPCs, and that's disappointing. There are a few moments throughout the story where they crop up, but apart from that, they feel very NPC-ish, which is disappointing because the way these characters are voiced and their mannerisms and their kind of just the way they're interesting characters. I like a lot of side characters. I just wish we've seen more of them. I guess we could quickly touch, just to kind of finish off, on its lore. Now, I'm not going to talk about its lore, but obviously this is a fantasy world. Athia is this big land with a lot of history to it. And the way it approaches this is through a lot of like archives, and you'll be able to read them in the archive section as you collect. And this is what I like to say the Final Fantasy 13 approach, where you've got this amazing world, and you could kind of present this world so much better, maybe through flashbacks or I don't know, something a bit more visually pleasing. But no, you just get these logs, and logs. So if you like reading, go all out. I do wish they were narrated. I think that makes it interesting. I think Tomb Raider did that really well. When you kind of collect your collectibles, you can you have it narrated to you, which is nice. I would like to have these like narrated by Cuff or something, or even Frey. Just the way she like looks at them. They do have comments after you collect it, like just commenting on what you've just read. But I feel like if it was narrated a little bit more, maybe that lore would be more taken in. But I read everything, and this world is amazing. It really is. It's something to behold for sure. And I think with that, I have covered everything I want to talk about. Again, I thank you for your time if you've stuck with me throughout the whole video. A lot of talking in this one, but I put a lot of time into it. Really grateful for the opportunity, and I just wanted to get all my thoughts and impressions out there. So yeah, let me know what you think. Are you excited for Forspoken? This video is releasing a day before the game comes out. I think you should buy it. I think this, if you've got a PlayStation 5 and you've looked at it, you've been on the fence of it, you've played the demo and you liked it, or you've played the demo and you think, oh, this is a bit too much for me in the way it was presented, I think you should buy the game. It is definitely a great PlayStation 5 game to play. I think this may go under a lot of people's radar because of the reception it may get due to its PC release, but I can't say anything on that right now. I'm just kind of predicting the future just a little bit. But I think it's a game you should pick up. I'm having a blast. I'm playing the end game. I want to platinum this, and it is difficult. There's going to be some grinding, but with this world and the way I can traverse it and the way I can throw these spells all over the place, I am more than happy to continue that journey. So thank you for watching. Again, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see, leave a comment in the comment section below, and until next time guys, I'll catch you on the flip side.